What up, what up, what up, YouTube? This your boy Kareem Supreme. Can you believe it? The Color Purple turns 35, December 18th, 2020. It came out December 18th, 1985. And believe it or not, I remember far back when this movie first hit the theaters. I remember people talking about it all the time. And, I was a little kid, and Prince's Purple Rain had came out the year before. And it was still a trending topic in the black community. Prince Purple Rain, and it featured him and Morris Day and a bunch of other artists, singers from Minnesota. And what's her name? Vanity and Apollonia was in it. You know, it was a good movie. And all I heard was Purple Rain, Purple Rain, Purple Rain. Everybody talking about Purple Rain. Kids talking about Purple Rain. So then, by Christmas of 85 to New Year's of 86, I started hearing people talking about the color purple, the color purple, the color purple. I'm like, is it Purple Rain or the color purple? Like, I thought it was the same movie. I didn't get it. You know what I mean? I was a little kid. I didn't get it. You know, it wasn't no YouTube. It wasn't no internet or smartphones back then. So I asked my mother, I said, Mom, what's the difference between Purple Rain and The Color Purple? I thought it was the same movie. She said, no, they're two different movies. And she said, matter of fact, we're going to see The Color Purple. And I'm like, okay, all right. So right then I understood that it was two different movies. And I said, Mom, can I go? She said, nah, you can't go. And, it's an adult film. It's for adults. And back then, parents, at least my parents, they took rated R movies seriously. I don't even think The Color Purple was rated R. But, hey, Mom said you can't go, you can't go. So, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, I remember it was like around New Year's of 86. Her, my stepfather, my godfather, and other people in my family, it's like half my family went to go see this one movie. And they were happy to go see it, and they left me at home with my uncle, and when they came back, everybody had tears in their eyes. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody had watery eyes. And so I asked my mom, I said, how was the movie? She said, oh, it was sad. She was like, everybody cried in the theater. And I had never heard of a movie making somebody cry, I immediately wanted to see what was so sad about it. So I asked my mom, I said, what was so sad about the movie? I said, did anybody get killed or anything? She said, no. It was about a husband and a wife, and the husband, was abusive to the wife. She was mean to the wife. And I said, oh, okay. All right. So I filed that in the back of my mind. A couple years later, I'll say around 87, 88, it came on cable TV. We had just got cable. And, it was coming on. I remember my parents talking about, Color Purple coming on tonight. And I asked my mom, can I watch it? I thought she was going to say, nah, because, it was for adults. But I guess after her going to see it at the movies, she realized it wasn't as bad as she thought it was. So she said, yeah, you can watch it. But my parents ended up leaving that night. They went somewhere, and I ended up watching it by myself. And I remember feeling like, damn, this movie was kind of messed up. Like, it was the first movie. It was the first time I ever seen two women kiss in a movie, and it was the first time I ever heard of incest in the movie. At least I thought, at the end, she found out that her father wasn't her real father, it was her stepfather, but still, stepfather, father, you know what I mean? That's still incest in my book. I mean, it was kind of weird. And then as a kid, I took it in a different way. I was probably in third grade or whatever. It kind of bothered me. It was mind boggling, and as far as the characters, Danny Glover was in this movie. Adolph Caesar was in this movie. Whoopi Goldberg, Margaret Avey, Ray Don Chung, Lawrence Fishburne was in this movie. Who else was in this movie? The guy that played Harpo, Willard Pugh, was in this movie too. You know, this movie had an all-star cast. But this movie really made me hate Danny Glover. I ain't gonna lie. You know, this is the first time I ever saw him in a movie, and I didn't like him. My mother didn't like him either. I didn't start liking Danny Glover until he came out with Lethal Weapon. Even then, I still looked at him funny. You know what I mean? I just didn't like him because he played his role so good. You know, he did his job. That's what actors are supposed to do. They're supposed to make you feel a certain type of way. You know, even if that makes you hate him. You know, because that wasn't Danny Glover. You know, but needless to say, this movie was based on a book by Alice Walker called The Color Purple, and the title just came from one of her quotes that she made. She said, "I think it pisses God off when you walk past the color purple and don't recognize it." She was talking about the purple or violet flowers in the meadows or whatever, and you know, that became that stuck. So she just, you know, named her book, you know, after that quote. But anyway, Alice Walker didn't want Steven Spielberg to direct this film because she didn't think he was suitable. You know, a white director who just got through directing Twilight Zone and E.T. and Indiana Jones. You know, he was a suspense director, animated, so to speak, director. You know, who is he to direct a movie about a black family? You know, and that's the way I would have felt if I would have wrote a book and some white guy would have said, "Y'all want to direct your film?" I'd be like, "Wait, you?" Like, you know what I mean? But it ended up being a good film. You know, Steven Spielberg put his foot in it. You know, but I'm sure Hollywood had their hand in it. You know, whenever it comes to movies based on black people or black leaders or black families or what have you, Hollywood has a way of changing up the dialogue, changing up the story to fit their narrative. You know, whether it be LBGT or, you know, making the mother a single parent or making the black male look soft, killing the black male image. Hollywood always find a way to manipulate scripts, you know, because media manipulates minds. And Hollywood is good at working their magic when it comes to black people, you know, black films. You know, they like to show us in a negative light. No matter how positive the original script is, they always find their way to work their magic to make us look negative. You know, and one of the actors in this movie, Willard Pugh, he played Harpo, and everybody thought he was soft. But Willard Pugh was a realist. You know, he was probably the most woke person on the set. You know, he was he was very well educated. You know, he was one of those actors that made it out of the hood, that got an education and never forgot where he came from. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, Willard Pugh would be equivalent to Dr. Umar Johnson, because Willard Pugh was very woke. You know, he understood the game. He understood, you know, maintaining a certain image. He understood Hollywood. He wasn't no punk by any means. He was a good actor. You know, a lot of people hated Harpo because Willard Pugh played Harpo so well. You know, and Willard Pugh stated he didn't even know what a juke joint was or what the South was like back then. You know, he had to hang around, you know, people that grew up in that era to understand it. You know, because he didn't know how he was going to play Harpo. You know, but that's a good actor, an actor that studies, you know, historical events, you know, or a time period, you know, take part in the people that lived it, so that way they can get some insight on how to act. That's a good actor. You know, he just didn't just jump in and say, "Oh, I'm gonna just, you know, cook up whatever I can cook up, whatever comes out, so be it." No, he didn't do that. You know, he did some paperwork. He did some homework, so to speak. You know what I mean? And it turned out to be a good role, a pivotal role. But unfortunately, a lot of black people looked at Willard Pugh like he was some sort of weak link in the movie, you got to remember this is just a movie, and some of us take movies seriously, especially when it comes to black movies. But like I said, Hollywood they always got to find a way to make the black man look weak. And a lot of brothers that understood Hollywood at this time back in the 80s, they didn't like the Willard Pugh Harpo character. Harpo is Oprah spelled backwards anyway. But Oprah Winfrey in the movie, Oprah Winfrey was Harpo's wife, and Harpo was somewhat abusive to her. They were abusive to each other. Like they say, two birds of a feather flock together. It didn't work out, and they ended up separating. And at the end of the movie, they got back together. But still, a lot of people was pissed about the Harpo character, and Willard Pugh went out his way to explain that. Check this out.
Borders, barriers, and lines. Because everybody has that problem within their race. This is not a black problem. And I hated, the biggest problem I really had with Color Purple, period, is that when people act as if that movie had to represent all black people. That's one movie with one situation and a story about those women and their lives. That's why sometimes, there were stronger male roles in the book. But as you're making a movie, you can't always put everything in. The book was long. And the movie was, 2.5 hours long. And the actual real movie was probably 4 hours long. And Stephen had to cut it down. One of my best scenes was when I broke up the fight in the juke joint, which was probably the only scene where you saw Harpo really being a man. But it was cut out. And so black men started saying, well, none of the men were strong. Well, one, it really wasn't our movie. That was a woman's movie. It was their story. Right. So some things suffer in that process. But the thing is, I know that's not all black people. That's not all black men. And I saw just as many white people crying and upset. Just as many white people got divorces after that movie because they got sick of their husbands that mistreated them. Hispanics. I did the children's drive last Saturday, and a Hispanic lady came up to me and cried and boo-hooed and took pictures with me, saying it was her favorite movie. And believe it or not, the lady knew every line in the movie, so she wasn't lying.
No,
I could remember them lines. I'm going, Jesus Christ. I've been in Puerto Rico and people speaking in Spanish and saying color purple. So I don't care where you go, the movie transcends race. It's just a people. It's about people. It's about women and their suppression and their struggle and what they went through. But unfortunately, a lot of time African Americans, especially males, will say, oh, we use negative image of black men and save the black family. The NAACP picketed us when the movie came out. We were picketed in New York and in LA. Then when we didn't get any Oscars, they picketed us up. We didn't win anything. We made us look twice as dumb. And what happened was white America said, guess what? If the NAACP and black people don't like it, we can't make any other films like this because it upsets them. It's just like anybody else. If the Jews would come out and say some movie that was made that upset them, guess what? They wouldn't make more of those movies that upset them either.
Yes, and speaking of Harpo, the thing I caught in The Color Purple, a lot of people didn't catch this, but I've seen it a million times. One of the things I noticed, it seemed like all of Danny Glover's kids in this movie stayed young except for Harpo. It seemed like he was the only one that got old. You know what I mean? I believe that's one of the goofs. It seemed like Harpo was the only one that got old because remember at the end when they were all sitting at the table eating and Whoopi Goldberg said, all you kids was rotten. And all the kids at the table looked at her, and then Harpo said, oh, no, hold on now here. And I'm like, damn, he the only one that got old. It was kind of weird. But, that's Hollywood. They can exaggerate or whatever. But, like I said, this movie kind of sort of made me hate Danny Glover. But he played a hell of a role. You got to give it to him. And Adolph Caesar played his father. I had saw Adolph Caesar in the movie before this called A Soldier Story, and that was a good movie. It was an army movie. That was a real good movie. That's one of my favorite army movies, and that was also a star-studded movie. Had a lot of cameos by known actors of today. And back to The Color Purple. This movie was good. It was nominated for 9 awards, And the sad thing about it, it didn't win not one. You know, didn't win not one award. How a movie get nominated 9 or more times, you know, in 9 different categories or whatever, and it doesn't win not one. Not one. You know, first people was mad at the actors who played the roles, like Harpo and Danny Glover, and, you know, but then when the movie got nominated 9 times, those same movie critics was mad because they didn't win in any category, you know. So they was mad at the actors that then got mad because the actors didn't win anything. And Willard Pugh talked about it. Check this out.
In the 80s and whatnot, and I know a lot of people like Samuel Jackson, they had a problem with some of the rappers, you know, getting a lot of roles as well. But you actually said that the protest from the black community helped destroy or curtail your career. Because
what happens, you get pigeonholed or stereotyped, and people felt that because there was so much negativity with the color purple, with the male roles, they would say you look at that and you see Harpo and you don't see you don't see a positive image, so they're not going to support this particular actor. Because any white actor that's been in a movie like The Color Purple, you can see he'd be a Tom Cruise.
Right.
For us, Danny struggled. The Color Purple didn't blow Danny up. Danny blew up from Lethal Weapon, which he did with Mel Gibson. And he was Mel Gibson's sidekick in the movie, and Mel carried him up to that next level, financially and career-wise of getting those movies. Because once you're in blockbusters with a guy like Mel Gibson, the door is going to open. It didn't open with Color Purple. And he was great in the first one. I think it was that he did a movie with Sally Fields. I can't think of the name of the movie off the top of my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a film he did before Color Purple. And with Sally Fields, he was just brilliant in that movie. So his acting ability had already been established. I think he did also another movie with Harrison Ford about some Mormons or something.
The Witness. I think you're talking about The Witness.
Brilliant in that movie.
Right.
Until he got with until he got with Mel Gibson and did the Lethal Weapon series, that's when he took off and became a megastar.
That's true, right? I'm not even like you said.
It wasn't Color Purple, because trust me, most of the people didn't support it like they thought. They supported it at the movie theater. It made money,
right? Because
it was such a watched film. But so far as our careers and making more roles, Margaret Avery, who's been acting since those Which Way Was Up with Richard Pryor, and
I like that. Mm-hmm.
Her career should have blew up after The Color Purple. She was riveting as Suge.
And she was.
And then I think she had done an article, a thank you letter in the trade. And unfortunately, Hollywood thought she was begging for an Oscar. But actually, she wrote a letter in the Color Purple language, Dear God, and really thanking them for nominating her. But people took it as if she was begging, and she was not.
Well, there it is. There it is. You know, that's his opinion. Other people may have had different opinions, but hey, everybody has an opinion like they got a belly button. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But back to the actors and actresses. I said before, Adolph Caesar was in this movie, and after the completion of this movie, he ended up dying. He passed away. And another actor that had a cameo in this movie was Boudini Brown. Boudini Brown was the guy at the juke joint that said, "Girl, you can catch a fish without a hook." You know, right after this movie, he died. And Boudini Brown, if you don't know, he was Muhammad Ali's cornerman. He was one of Ali's cornermen. All throughout Ali's fighting career, Boudini Brown was always in his corner, always. This was the first time I ever saw him in a movie. You know, I don't know if he played in any other movies, but this is the one that stood in my mind that he's known for. You can catch a fish without a hook, girl. I used to say that all throughout high school. But anyway, yeah, Rae Dawn Chong was in this movie. She's the daughter of Chong from Cheech and Chong. A lot of people didn't know that. And Whoopi Goldberg was a stand-up comedian. You know, in fact, she really didn't want to play Celie. You know, she was a comedian. She wanted to play Sophia, which is Oprah's character. You know, this was her first movie, so her back was up against the wall. She liked the book. She liked the writer of the book. So, in a way she couldn't say no. So she took the role and just hit the ball out the park. But she originally wanted to play Sophia. Now Oprah at the time was she was a news broadcaster. She wasn't an actress. This was her first movie. She was discovered by Quincy Jones, who's also from Chicago. Oprah was in Chicago, working on the news network. I can't remember which one it was, but Quincy was watching the news one day and he said, "That's Sophia." He called up Steven Spielberg and said, "Look, I got Sophia," and that's how Oprah got. That's how she got the job. That's how she became a star. This movie it didn't blow her up. Her show is what blew her up. But this movie was very significant in her career. Same thing with Whoopi. She's known for this. This is one of the movies she's known for. Whoopi went on to star in Jumpin' Jack Flash and a bunch of other movies. Ghost. Ghost is what really blew Whoopi up. Really, that was a good movie, and I believe that was one of the movies she won. Some of her biggest awards off of. But Danny Glover. This movie should have blew. This movie really should have blew Margaret Avery up, because Margaret Avery, she played Suge. She had been acting since the 70s. She was in a lot of black exploitation movies. Whether it was a cameo or a small role. She was in a lot of black movies. I think she was in Which Way Is Up. She was in a lot of good movies, and this movie really should have blew her up, but it didn't. And speaking of Suge Avery's role, first it went to Tina Turner. Tina Turner was supposed to be Suge Avery, but Tina Turner read the script and said she didn't want nothing to do with it because she lived that with Ike Turner. The abuse and, the neglect or whatever. She didn't want to do it. Then it went to Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan was like, "Nah, I'm good." And so, speaking of Shaka Khan and Tina Turner, when The Color Purple was being filmed in '84, Shaka Khan was working on her Grammy Award winning single "I Feel For You" with Melly Mel, and it was written by Prince, had Stevie Wonder playing a harmonica in it. She had bigger fish to fry, and so did Tina Turner. As a matter of fact, around the time when they asked Tina Turner could she be in The Color Purple, she was filming this movie called Mad Max of Thunderdome. Mad Max of Thunderdome. So, she wasn't thinking about a sad movie like The Color Purple. She was, Tina Turner was into rock and roll at this time. She was, she was about being hyped up. She wanted to do action, if anything, and I don't blame her. You know what I mean? But hey, you live and you learn, right? A lot of people used to say, "Oh, she should have took that role. Oh, she would have played Suge Avery good." Maybe she wouldn't have. I think Margaret Avery did a hell of a job. Speaking of Margaret Avery, like I said, she was in a lot of good movies back in the 70s. Which Way Is Up? She was also in this movie called The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh with the black James Bond Jr., the one that went on to play in School Days with Spike Lee. And Dr. J was in that movie, and so was Melvin Peoples. I think Melvin Peoples was in that movie. I think. But anyway, she also played in, I think it was it A Rage in Harlem or Hell Up in Harlem? One of those movies. She was in a lot of black movies. She was also in An Eye for an Eye back in the 70s. But anyway, let me see. Rae Dawn Chong was in this movie, and she played a good role. And also Lawrence Fishburne, he played Harpo's friend, Swain. He was in this movie, and Ceely's father, the old man, he played in a lot of good movies too. He played in Car Wash. He was the uppity Negro in Car Wash. I ain't gonna clean up the shit. I'm the nigga that doesn't get wet around here. I forgot his name, but he played in a lot of good movies too. what a lot of people didn't like about the script was how Danny Glover separated the two sisters, Nettie and Celie. Now, Nettie, she, the girl that played her, I forgot her name. I'm just going off the top of the dome. I didn't even do any research. The girl that played Nettie and the girl that played Celie when they were young, they were actually good looking actresses. The makeup designers had them looking like, ran down slave girls. Actually they were good looking, and they really didn't do anything else after this movie. It's like the doors didn't open for them. The girl that played Nettie, her and Willard Pugh played in the movie that came out right after the Color Purple. It was called Native Son with Victor Love. That was a good movie. It's called Native Son. And then it seemed like after that, she seemed to disappear. Like, I didn't really hear anything from her. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. You would think doors would open after The Color Purple, because that was a good movie. But some movies seem like they're only big, what's big in our community, it seemed like it just remains in our community. Like, you would think it would open up some doors, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And it's sad, man, because, this was a good movie that transcended all races. It wasn't about just a black family, This happened in white families, Hispanic families. You heard Willard Pugh say it earlier, But unfortunately, the doors just didn't open. The good thing about The Color Purple that I found interesting is that a lot of the words became catchphrases. A lot of the lines became catchphrases. To this day, I still hear people saying, "Who this woman?" Or if they're referring to somebody that they don't know, they'll be like, "Harpo, who this? Who this woman? Who this lady? Who this man?" Another one is one of my favorite ones was when Danny Glover said, "I done fixed that mailbox so I could tell if it be messed with." that was one of my favorites. Like, I used to tell my brothers and sisters, "I done fixed that Kool-Aid so I can tell if it be messed with." Or I'll be like, "I done fixed that TV." Like, if I say don't mess with my TV or don't go in my room, I'll be like, I done fixed that door to the room so I can tell if it been messed with. You know what I mean? That's another one that stuck. And another one was when the little boy said, "It's gonna rain on your head." I still hear people saying that to this day. If it's raining outside and you ain't got an umbrella, it's gonna rain on your head. Or if they know it's gonna rain later on, they'll tell you that it's gonna rain on your head. Another one was when Danny Glover's father, old Mister Adolph Caesar, when he came in and said, "You been drinking." When I first saw it, that cracked me up. And when I got a little older, I started drinking. I used to be drinking 40 ounces, and my mom would call me, or she'll come over my house, and my mom knows when somebody's been drinking. She could just look at you and tell if you hungover or if you had a few, if you tipsy. She could tell. She would call me and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm all right, Mom." She'd be like, "You been drinking?" And I couldn't help but laugh, because every time she would say that, she was right. And she didn't say it much, but when she did say it, she was right. Mothers know. Another one was all my life I had to fight. I still see that on Facebook, or I would see when Whoopi Goldberg said, Suge Avery said to Whoopi Goldberg, she said, "You sure is ugly." I mean, people still say these things to this day. To this day, people still say these lines, And to this very day, I still hear females with younger sisters or older sisters. I still hear them singing that song, "Sister," to each other. "You been on my mind," especially if they ain't heard from each other in a long time. You'll hear him say, "Hey, sister, you've been on my mind, sister. We're two of a kind." Y'all get the point. But anyway, let me know what you think about this video. And let me know what was your favorite line from this movie. Holla at your boy Kareem Supreme. Peace.